for going the extra mile and make sure that we're working out the problems case by case, because something like this is very individualized and personalized, and that is our goal, to continue to get feedback and make adjustments and work on those things. So I appreciate that. Along with that, as far as the state's concerned, Brian's going to update us more on sort of the budget, but you may have heard that the legislature isn't actually going back into session until May 18th. May 12th is when the new projections of state budget will come out. May 18th is when they'll start working on basically the state budget and also the School Finance Act. We don't expect that to be done until probably June. So I recommend that we probably, at this time, we'll maybe have to adjust as we go, that we do a flat budget, meaning we basically budget like we are this year. And then after June, because we have to have one legally done by the end of June. And then from that, we can make adjustments. You can adjust or amend your budget after that. But with that information, people are recommending, the state's recommending that you probably create a flat budget. We'll keep you informed on that. We are going to hire positions that we have open FTEs for right now, and I gave that permission today, of positions that we need to fill as a priority, and our administrators in each building will work on that. We are working with administrators, and then I've also met with the Meet and Confer group on teacher evaluation. I think we have a good plan. Everybody's pretty well agreed on it. We will use the 5 professional standards and then a narrative of the teachers' goals and how they met their goals. We do not have any state requirements. That has been lifted. But we also want to make sure our teachers are recognized for the work they've done and have evaluation. It will also help them move on from probationary to non-probationary. Without an evaluation, you're not able to do that. So it's really beneficial to our teachers to have that evaluation, and also to all of us to have a capture of the things that they've done this year. And there'll be flexibility with the administrator and the teacher on what that narrative looks like, depending on what their goals were. But it still has the 5 professional standards that we're always related to. So we'll continue updating you on that, but that's where we're headed. I gave that to the teachers. They thought that was a good idea. The administrators think it's a good idea. And so we'll continue working on that. Other things, still a lot of meetings on what to do with all kinds of things as far as special education and graduation and those sort of things, but I think we're in good shape on where we are with those, and nothing needs to be done at the board level at this time. We're just working together on those and keep you updated as we go along. So that is really all I have. That's won't steal into the administrators and Brian's reports, but I appreciate everybody continuing to have strong communication and working together, and continuing the flexibility that's needed in this time.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments for Sheldon?
Thanks for all your hard work. I know it's been a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sheldon. All right, moving on to our administrator reports. Elementary school principal, John Bryant.
All right. Hi, everyone. Nice to see your faces.
Hi, John. Good to see yours too.
So just kind of some basic overviews of how Cloud School is going right now. We our participation rate, I'll just talk a little bit about that. It's surprisingly high. I'm happy with where we're at. We're tracking participation in lots of different ways, and I'm not going to get into the nuances of exactly how it's happening, because it's happening in different ways at different grade levels. But I can confidently say that 95% of our kids have been participating in Cloud School at varying degrees. So that's, a percentage of them every single day doing everything that we're asking them to do, some of them doing most of the things, and then a smaller percentage that are just doing some things here and there. So we have about 5% of our student body who haven't participated or engaged at a high level. So I was happy to see that number. Right now, so my energy is really focused on those 5% right now and figuring out ways in which we can engage them. We have a lot of things set up with internet connectivity for free and reduced lunch kids. But overall, I'm happy with where we are. So I'm working with the teacher though on figuring out how we can engage with that about 5% school wide. Some of the feedback we've been getting, we district-wide, we sent out a survey last Friday, and last I checked, we had about 120 or so responses, and that was for K-12. A couple of takeaways that I had from that survey. Number one, parents, generally speaking, were just very, very happy with the way things are going. A lot of it was a narrative survey, so the comments were, just narrative format, asking parents, tell us how things are going. But big takeaway was parents relating it to other schools and other districts that they're aware of, and they were just so happy with what's happening. So overwhelmingly positive. The one piece I could pull out that parents wanted more and more of, they felt like that we're doing it, but they really want more of, is just that personal connection. So having more of the Google Meet or Zoom meetings. We have some classrooms that have a regular standing one every single day. We have others that maybe are doing it every other day. But parents really and kids really appreciate seeing faces of their friends and their teacher, and just engaging in that and as personal a way as we can right now. So that was really the big takeaway that I took from it, was we need to continue to do more and more of that just to stay and feel connected. Some other things that we're just that are on our radar that we don't necessarily have solutions for at this point in time, but we know we want some things to happen around are some of the events that we had planned for the rest of the year. So for example, 5th grade promotion, right? That's a really sacred thing for our 5th graders, and we're still processing ideas around that. Maybe wait and see. I mean, it seems like every week we have new news on timelines. So but in some way, shape, or form, we of course have to do something special for our 5th graders around 5th grade promotion. That's a big one. Also, at the end of the year, we have a talent show at the school, and that's fun. The kids really look forward to that. So I'm working with Jenna Williams right now on figuring out a way to do something fun with that, most likely virtual, but have kids virtually experience a talent show in some capacity. Not totally sure how we're going to pull that off so that it is a little live instead of just sending in videos, but we're kicking around ideas there. And I'm open to any ideas that you guys, it seems like one of the best sources are other schools and districts that are getting creative and people are reading about. So if anyone comes across any ideas around these kinds of celebrations, please pass them my way. And then the other big one is kindergarten roundup. That won't take place as scheduled. And so that's certainly something that has to take place in person. I mean, the event of it anyway. We're going to we've already started to, and we'll continue to get the message out to families that, of course, we're still taking registration, but stay tuned for a roundup of some sort. The way things are kind of progressing right now, it looks like that would probably be a summer or kindergarten roundup at best. June, July, August. I'm not sure, but that's another thing we're just keeping an eye on and have in the back of our mind as far as a really critical end of year event that we need to make sure happens. So yeah, that's kind of some stuff going on at the elementary school. Love to know if you guys have any questions or thoughts, and got some parents in the room too. So any questions for me or comments?
Well, I was going to say, John, every morning, Victoria and her 3rd grade class with Mrs. Fortini, they have a class meeting, and it makes my heart so happy to hear all those kids laughing and joking with each other. It sounds like an actual classroom in her. She shuts the door. She's very private about it all, but it's just great to hear all the laughter, and she looks forward to it. I love that. And then another thing too, I think it's this week, I'll find it and send a link out to everybody. CASB is having a webinar about what all the different districts are doing for the special events, for graduations, for promotions, so it's going to be a webinar where all the Colorado districts will share their ideas. And it's usually about 45 minutes to an hour long, but I'll find that link and send it to everybody if you want to join.
Great.
So I was going to
Nice,
join
yeah.
and take some notes, send them to you guys. But it's just a great way for all the districts in Colorado to get together and kind of talk about what we're all doing.
Awesome. Yeah, and that the meetings that teachers are having with the kids, and the other piece is just my role in all this. And my role has of course changed, as is everyone's. And right now I'm approaching this from we have to just exude positivity and staying connected with kids. And so I'm doing that weekly video that I'm sending out to everyone, trying to keep it goofy and somewhat silly, but also relaying some information. And the other piece around it, the filter I'm trying to take is we're asking, with the iPads in the home now and with video conferencing, we're asking families to open up their house to us. And, our teachers are video conferencing in their home. And so that's the other thing I've been trying to do with my videos, and I've been trying to encourage teachers to do, is to show kids my house and show kids me, and be a little goofy so that we all can continue to feel more comfortable in this new reality we're in right now. So
Joseph loves Ben running in the Bobcat with the gorilla suit. Like, he's been loving those videos. I think they're awesome. Yeah, I think you guys are doing great.
thanks.
John, and a concern at the beginning of all this was going to be internet connectivity. It sounds like we're having 95% participation rate. We're really not running into that. Would that be a true statement?
Yes, with the occasional exception, but definitely by far it's an exception. I think last I heard, we've gotten about 7 families connected in our district with free internet because of the partnership with Airbits and I think TDS, but they're slightly different. So yeah, there's still a couple where connectivity is a situation. A couple of our kids who haven't connected yet have complicated home situations with whether it's custody and things like that, and they're not even really necessarily in the community anymore. So the ones that are not connected are not always internet. In fact, it's usually a little more complicated. So I'd say we're doing really well on the internet front.
Great, thank you.
John, are kids in the Glen Haven, Drake, and Storm Mountain area, are we able to get internet service to all them? Is that what I'm hearing?
So I am not sure. I did have a communication today with a mother who lives up on Storm Mountain, and they had satellite internet up there. She told me that her daughter last week streamed a whole bunch of videos and used up all of their data on that. And so that my next to-do item is to see whether Airbits even reaches out that far. I don't know if they do. But I just had a conversation with a mom this morning that they've run out of data on their satellite, because I believe that in a lot of those areas, satellite internet is the primary means, but I'm not totally sure on that. That's on my to-do to follow up on.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments for John? No? All right, thank you, John.
All right, thanks. See you guys.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to middle school principal Janet Fanning. Janet. Is she here?
Okay, now am I there?
Yeah.
There you are. Hi, Janet.
Hi. All right, I'll just follow along kind of where John was with starting with engagement and tracking that. Feeling really good about 6th and 7th grade. We're over 90% on both of those with kids that have somehow connected with their teacher. We're tracking it every Friday. Teachers are tracking engagement for us. They're actually even rating engagement, but we're over 90% of kids that in some way have connected during the week. 8th grade isn't quite there, but we're working on that, and not a lot different from what we would see in a school day in a classroom. So working on that. We've got quite a few strategies that we're working on to engage the kids that we haven't seen at all, and some that aren't doing much other than maybe just shooting the teacher an email. Starting with, we're sending messages through Blackboard and also through Schoology. Teachers are emailing kids regularly, trying to connect with them that way. Then there's a group of us that are reaching out to parents of the kids that we have not seen at all or that are doing very minimal. Myself, Mary Barron, I've got a long-term sub in our counselor position. Jose and Sonia Greenway and I are dividing up those kids and just making contact with the parents and seeing what barriers there are and how we can help them improve engagement for that student. And we are doing paper copies. So interesting. I don't know, I might have made a mistake, but I put out, if you need paper copies because you don't have Wi-Fi, let me know. Today we're at 19 different families getting paper copies, but of those, only 3 don't have Wi-Fi. We just have some parents particularly that prefer paper. I wouldn't say it's the student that prefers paper, but some parents saying they would do better. So we do a little pickup, drop off every Monday at the middle school. They can pick up new papers and drop off the work that they did get done. And then it's just scanned to the teachers. So a lot of those kids, interesting, are still attending sessions through Google Meets and have still submitted work through Schoology, yet I think the parents also having them do it on paper. So we're getting it maybe twice from some of those kids. We are starting next week. We're going to celebrate at each grade level the Cloud School Student of the Week, because we've got some kids that maybe struggled in the classroom but have embraced this and are really leading the way and asking even for more projects, and they're helping their peers out and showing up to all the sessions. So we're going to start celebrating that with a video of each of those kids. Sonia Greenway and I are working on that this week. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from parents, but a lot of times it's the same parents that think we're doing a great job, have reached out and just complimented the middle school staff. My staff's worked really, really hard. I think Schoology makes it an easier transition. It's a really good platform for this. I think just hearing John talk, I think Schoology is a little more, it's been a little easier to switch over than Seesaw has been. And we were already using it and things were there. So it's been pretty smooth. Our teams are working really closely together. We actually meet twice a week. We meet on Tuesdays and Fridays as grade level teams, and the interventionists come, my special ed teacher and the counselor and Sonia and Kathy Klipstein, and we all come together and talk about each grade level and how to support kids that need extra support. So that part in terms of staff, I think has been going really well. We also brainstorms at that meeting. It'll be interesting. Like, I think some kids are picking and choosing what they're doing. So we're brainstorming at that meeting. Like, somebody will say, well, why is he going to his class, but he hasn't come to mine? And we're kind of working through some of those issues at that level. And then kind of along the same lines as elementary, 8th grade promotion is out there, and certainly we need to come up with something, but until the stay-at-home order is lifted, I'm kind of laying low, and I want to wait and see what Chuck does at the high school level also. So we're kind of waiting on that. We are doing our talent show virtually, so Kathy Klipstein's heading that up, and student council, and that's up and running already. Most of the contact I've gotten is from kids that want to get in and get things out of their lockers. I've heard more about lockers than any schoolwork in 3 weeks. And again, until the order is lifted, we're not doing lockers unless it's related to learning. So no, your tennis shoes aren't necessarily vital unless the parent tells me it's their only pair of tennis shoes. I did get one of those, but iPads, binders, those kinds of things that maybe a textbook if they forgot those, I've made arrangements, but that's even just at the front doors of the middle school. We're doing that. The paper copies we're doing really safe also. The paper copies are just like in the vestibule of the middle school at the assigned time. The parent drops off, takes the envelope, 10 minutes later, the next parent comes. So I just want you to know we're trying to be super safe about that and contact with anybody. So that's the quick rundown. Teachers are doing awesome though. The middle school is, I think, on top of Cloud School. It's going really well.
Excellent. Janet, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked John. Are you having issues reaching some of our harder to reach students, Drake, Glen Haven, Storm Mountain?
You know, I have 2 up Storm Mountain. They are getting paper copies. Unfortunately, the snow prohibited that today, but they've gotten paper copies. They've taken textbooks home, and mom is working on getting Wi-Fi. And then we really just have one other student, and we're working with Airbits, and they're picking up paper copies in the meanwhile. So we're not doing too bad at all.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Any questions or comments for Principal Fanning?
Thanks for all your work. It's great. Going great.
Yeah. And Janet, we had to have a come to Jesus talk with our middle schooler today.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing her tomorrow.
kids too. So, you know, we all took some responsibility that we need to get on the ball and make sure that our kid is learning and that we're being good parents with that
Yeah.
too. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jan.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Moving on to high school principal Chuck Scott. Chuck?
Good afternoon. I think I want to talk a little bit about with our attendance, whether it's a check-in. Check-in has been very high with our kids versus engagement, and our engagement isn't probably quite as high, just depending on where the classes are at and which ones. Our AP and college classes, they're still rolling, you know, just as they always would, and just about with 100% attendance. We even have one girl that's in Mexico, and she hasn't missed one of her AP classes. You know, our check-in rate is very, very high. Engagement rate is, you know, depending on what class and so forth, where we're at with that. Like I say, our AP students are getting prepared. They are still going to test. We test from May 11th through the 22nd. They are going to test from home. If the stay-at-home order has been lifted, we are going to, we'll probably open up the commons for those that don't have great internet connection at home to come in and test here. College Board has made the test a 45-minute test. And so it's a lot shorter than usual. Usually our kids are testing about 3 hours. So they've made it a lot shorter, and it can all be done from home on the iPad. We will check out keyboards to those students that feel more comfortable with keyboards and those types of things. I want to just say that our PLC teams are still meeting weekly. We're both meeting grade levels and subject areas, and our teachers are doing an awesome job between the teaching and being present for the PLCs. One teacher I want to above and beyond is Barton Toffany, and he's put up his Toff Talks and really expressed some good things for the kids to know about. So all in all, I think, you know, our kids are doing well. We do have, like I say, we have kids in Mexico, we have kids in Arizona, we have kids in Iowa, and for the most part, they're staying engaged and doing what they need to do. Our seniors were Sherry Hightower and Kara and Chris, our counselors, are working hard to stay in contact with those seniors that we need to continue to get some work done for graduation. And we've, I think we've got in contact with all of them except for one. And actually Sherry's headed the McDonald's right now to try and get them rounded up and back on track what they need to do before the 22nd. So with that being said, you know, the town has left it open on the 22nd. They have canceled all events and all outside people from coming in up until May 21st. I do believe it's a long shot that we can have graduation in the event center on the 22nd, but it's a shot. We've already talked to the town about having pushing it into June, and they have lots of dates, obviously, because they've canceled most of everything in June and July. If towns open back up, July will be kind of tough because most of our kids will be working and so forth. But we're gonna continue to look at that and probably wait until the 1st of May to make a call on that. Some of the things, the Chamber of Commerce has agreed to print a sign for every senior that we're going to take around and put in their yard saying they're a 2020 graduate of Estes Park High. We're talking about putting a senior spotlight in the paper and on our Facebook page and everything, and we're getting that rolling this week, and hopefully next week we'll have 5 to 7 seniors spotlighted. And then I've also talked to the police department about if we can't have graduation on the 22nd, at least having a parade up Main Street where, we could have 2 to 3 kids in each car, and the families could spread out, and it would be a way to honor them. So we're preparing some different alternatives, but at some point we will still have a ceremony for those kids, and whether it's I'm hoping that in mid to late June we can have that, and it might have to be outside. We talked about having it at the football field, spreading people out a lot more, and limiting our graduates to maybe 2 to 3 people each one can bring. And so those are some of the things we're thinking about and trying to make some decisions on. And we in contact with a lot of the seniors and their parents as to what they would like and appreciate, and it's about them, and so we want them involved in that decision. So I think that's all I have.
Chuck, and for everyone else to know too, Laura lost her internet, it sounds like, and at the moment got kicked out of the meeting. She didn't have internet service, so she's working on her end to, looks like she might be coming back on now as it is. But just checking in with the engagement for the students. Sounds like it's not because they don't have iPads or computers and internet. It's more, is it more on them?
Yeah. Yeah, and some of our Storm Mountain kids are struggling a little bit, but I mean, I think a lot of our kids right now, they've completely changed their clock schedule, and we have kids handing in work at 3 a.m. and I had one mom say the other day that her kid is staying up till 5 in the morning and then sleeping all day, and so they're really struggling, I think, with some of that. So I think that's a lot of it. And I mean, the high school kids, when we sent out the grading information and they saw, your third quarter grade, it will not go below that. Some of them jumped on that and said, "Oh, I'm done." So it's it is what it is, and it's just one of those situations that nobody's prepared for, and we're going to do the best and continue to do what learning we can, but at the same time respect. There's a lot of these kids and families going through some tough times.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Chuck, thanks so much for all your work, especially taking care of graduation and making them feel like we're doing everything we can from I know it's a lot of work, so I appreciate that. One question I had is, do you have a feeling on how the seniors are doing, like emotionally? How are they feeling about their senior year being upended?
There's some of them that are really, really struggling. Some of our kids that are so social, this is their 2 months to enjoy each other, and I think we have a lot of them that are really, really struggling with where the world's at right now, and being robbed of this time in their life to celebrate with their friends that they've had for 12 years in school. And so I think a lot of them are really, really struggling.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions or comments for Chuck? All right, thank you, Chuck.
Yep.
Moving on to 2.3, agenda item 2.3, board reports. I don't know if we have any since we gave our reports last meeting. Anybody have anything?
Nothing new.
No. All right, moving on to agenda item 2.4, our financial report. This is our third quarter and preliminary budget update for 2020 to 2021. Brian Lund.
Good evening. I do not have the financial report prepared. We're waiting on a few things to come in so we can finalize that. I'll get that to you either at the end of the month if we have another board meeting, or next month's meeting. But I want to touch on food service real quick. We did increase about 70 kids last week. We were doing about 450 kids, providing them meals last week. Today was down a little bit. We didn't have as many come through the school. I'm not sure on Suburbans, but our I know Glen Haven, we were right where we normally are. Storm Mountain, we got everything out to them last Friday in anticipation of the storm coming in. So they didn't have to try to get down to get their meals for today and tomorrow. But when the weather's nicer, we're right around that 450 kids coming through and getting breakfast and lunch. So that's kind of where we are with food service. Financially this year, we will draw on the no interest loan 2 more times. So we'll have a draw at the end of this month for payroll, and then we'll have a small draw early next month just to cover operating expenses and things like that tied with CTE building, depending on when the timing of those invoices do come in. So we do have that. The treasurer did provide the link that I was talking about to where we can see what their actual collections are on a daily basis for property taxes. I'll look at that towards the end of the month to get a better idea of what our collection look like and our distribution will receive next month, because our distributions next month are through April and then the first 15 days of April. So we get 2 distributions next month, or of May, for 15 days of May. So we'll get 2 distributions next month. But that'll give us an idea of, on the cash flow side of things, how things are coming in. We're also looking at moving some things around budgetarily for this year. I will be preparing another resolution to modify the budget. We're looking at moving some SPED personnel within the grants. The supplemental budget, we used the state's carryover number, but their carryover number didn't agree with what our actual carryover number was. So we budgeted low. So we actually have capacity in there to move a staff member out of general fund and put into the grant and get reimbursed for that through IDEA instead of using ECEA general fund monies. So I will have that coming to you guys probably May, once we get all that stuff finalized. We're also looking at moving a few other things around just to free up some money within general fund. Just depending upon what happens next year, we do have a little bit more capacity built into general fund just by freeing up and moving some things around. Because like Sheldon was saying, we won't know for next year what it looks like for the long bill until May 18th. That's when they are planning on presenting that to the House, and then I'll present it to the Senate the following week. So we're still over a month out before we kind of have an idea of what the financial picture looks like for funding next year, because they're trying to get all their revenue forecasts and all that stuff compiled in the next month. So we're kind of in a waiting game there. We did receive some renewals. Our insurance renewal came back in at 0.08% increase. So we're basically flat, which is good. So we can budget that and keep that going pretty much at the same level we have it right now. We have received some title preliminary allocations. Those remain fairly flat. So that's also another good thing. So, I mean, we're pretty much right in line with what we received this year. So there's not going to be a huge adjustment there. It's not like our Title I dropped 50%. So we have to scramble to try to figure that out. Those did remain fairly level. Based on what I'm hearing or what I heard prior to everything, our para increase should only be the standard annual increase, because it's based off of last year's financial performance, not this year's, which is a good thing since everything's kind of been volatile in the markets recently. So we're looking at, just the standard annual 0.5% increase for para. So we do know that. I did hear back from our workers' comp today. Our mod factor did go down, so that should help our renewal. We haven't had a huge increase in that in a while, and we're really not utilizing it, especially with everybody staying home. Claims should go down, so our utilization should be reduced there. So we're anticipating that to remain fairly flat. We're also looking at changing deductibles a little bit on that just to help with the renewal too. Our deductible is very low right now. We're at $500 a claim. We're looking at doubling that, going to 1,000. So that should help our renewals too. Keep it flat. It might actually reduce it just a little bit based off of some of the information that we received with our mod factor going down. So we have that. And actually, right before I started talking, I did receive some word from SITSIP. I haven't had a chance to read the email to see what our liability insurance looks like. Hopefully it's our renewal package so we can kind of get an idea of where that's coming in. But we aren't anticipating that to go up significantly. It will change with the CTE building coming online and operational. So we will have, a little bit more exposure there. So our premium will go up just a little bit, but we're not anticipating a huge increase there. So that's kind of where we're at right now budgetarily for next year. We are getting things in, but the big driver is the JBC's long bill. And once we get that, we'll have a better idea of what next year looks like. Plus, depending upon how long this situation goes on, will we lose kids? Will our student count go down? Things like that. So we kind of got to look at that too, because that will affect us going forward just because the funding formula is based off of student count. So it won't be a huge fluctuation just because of the averaging, but it will have an impact. So, and then we're also waiting to hear from the state on how they're going to get us the their share of the 13.5 million that came out in the CARES Act. They're going through all of that to kind of figure out eligibility or what we can use it on, things like that. They are going to base it off of Title I allocations. It won't be used for Title I, but it'll be based off of those percentages because that's a universal distribution number that they already have in place. So based on how much the state gets, we'll get based off of our Title I allocation percentage at the state level. So that's kind of how the funding's going to flow to us. But like I said, we're still waiting on some more guidance from the state on how we can use those funds or if they're going to use it going forward to help offset some of the reductions in revenue and things like that that they have coming in to help going forward. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Do you guys have any questions? I know that's a lot of...
Brian, this will be a kind of wait and see. And then some of it, we need to be thinking a year out as something may be impacted a year from now on renewals because of what we're experiencing now. Would that be a likely scenario?
Yep. Like I said, we know the pair number will be affected next year just because of the how the fund's doing. But if we do lose population, that will gradually decrease just because of the averaging that we have, because we'll still have this year's count, last year's count. Next year's will go down, but when they average it, it won't be that full drop, depending on if we lose kids or how many kids we do lose. So yeah, this will have a continuing effect going forward. And then the other thing is it will affect cash flow too, dependent upon how many people do take advantage of the delayment in property taxes. Because we do have the significant portion tied up in commercial real estate, just because of all the businesses and things like that we have in town. So that we'll get the money, it's just when it comes in. Yep. So, I mean, we have to start looking at that too on the timing thing. Sheldon and I have been having conversations. We do have capacity within the no interest loan. If for some reason we don't get our tax revenue, that way we can continue operating through the end of June. So, I mean, we do have some things in place, mechanisms in place that will help us going forward. But like you said, it's a waiting game. We're waiting until the end of the month on the property tax, and then we're waiting until the middle of next month to see what JBC and Ledge Council comes up with for the long bill.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Brian, first of all, thanks so much for all your work on the lunches. It's great you're getting that so many out. I was curious, just ballpark, how is this year's budget being impacted by COVID-19 compared to if we were running normally?
Well, we're not buying as much stuff, obviously. Our consumables, they'll be going down just because we're not going through the paper and that type of stuff. Overhead, I mean, we're not using as much electricity. All the rooms are dark. We're not using water, things like that. We were talking about kind of shutting back some of the HVAC stuff before this week came in. So, I mean, our day-to-day operational stuff, that'll go down just a little bit. But I mean, we still have to keep the buildings warm so we don't have pipes break, things like that. So, I mean, we do still have some of those fixed overhead costs. But our consumables, we'll see in this next cycle in the next month, because everything's, we're paying a month in arrears on a lot of that stuff.
Right.
So we'll have a better understanding next month, kind of how much less we're buying, just because, we're 2.5 weeks out since we kind of closed down. So I'll have a better idea for you next month once we kind of see the slowdown and not being in the buildings and things like that. But like I said, our day-to-day operation expenses, consumables and stuff like that, that'll be down.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
And I would think that the cost of sports, the spring sports, those costs would be gone as well, correct?
We're still kind of figuring that out, because we did have about a third of the season go through before school closure. So we're still working through some of that. But yes, we don't have all the registration fees for tournaments and all the travel and that type of stuff. We're not running 7 buses out on routes every day, things like that. So we don't have the fuel costs and just the general wear and tear on all of our vehicles and things like that. So that's helping us right now. So.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Brian?
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, thanks, Brian, for all your hard work.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
And I just want to thank all of our food service workers that have been coming in.
Absolutely.
They've been putting in a lot of hard work getting everything prepared. It takes some time to put 450 sack lunches together on a daily basis. So real proud of what they've been doing, and then the volunteers have been coming in and helping getting food out to the kids too. Appreciate all the help they've been giving us as well.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, thank you.
I just want to say my internet is very spotty and I keep getting kicked out. So if I get kicked out, I sent Eric, I don't know if you got it, Eric, but I screenshotted my script. So if I get kicked out again because of my internet, Eric will finish up the meeting.
Yep.
But hopefully I won't. We don't have that much longer to go. All right, moving on to agenda item, yes?
I was going to say real quick too, I just heard back from Cynthia Croomy. I messaged her real quick, and they do not provide or cannot provide internet to Storm Mountain. So just, if Heather, you can pass that on to the principals, that doesn't exist through AirBits at least.
Thank you for doing that, Eric. All right, moving on to our agenda item 3, our consent agenda. Is there anything the board would like to pull from the consent agenda for discussion prior to approval? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Anybody like to second that?
I'll second.
Thank you. Heather, roll call, please.
All right, and just for clarification, the motion was made by Eric Adams, seconded by Christy Capo. Mr. Adams.
Aye.
Mrs. Capo.
Aye.
Mrs. Case.
Aye.
Mr. Kushner.
Aye.
Mrs. Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you, Heather. The ayes carry the vote and the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item 4, our action items. We have no action items at this time. Moving on to agenda item 5, our upcoming meetings. Anybody have any questions about our upcoming meetings? I do. Are we still doing the SAC meetings? I don't do the SAC meetings, so I don't know if you guys are still doing the SAC meetings.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I haven't heard the middle school ones running.
Okay.
We have a DAC meeting tomorrow.
That's right, at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. And then looks like Erica, Sheldon, and I have an agenda planning meeting next Monday on the 20th. I was wondering if we could possibly move that to Tuesday instead of Monday. Does that work for you guys? I'm open anytime on Tuesday.
That's fine with me. I can make it work.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, looks like that works for me.
Okay, yeah, anytime on Tuesday. So let me know and we'll
Okay.
get that on the calendar. Moving on to agenda item 6, other. Any board members have any other comments to wrap this meeting up?
Just real quick, are we sticking with our scheduled dates for our work sessions and meetings moving forward? Are we changing? What's the plan for all of that?
Well, I figured that we could talk about that in our agenda planning meeting and seeing if we want to keep that schedule or if we need to add more meetings. Just figuring that we could have that discussion at our agenda planning.
Okay.
I need to know sooner rather than later so that I can make sure I'm available. So let's make sure we get that quickly, please.
If any, I would say if any board members have any input on this as far as going back to a regular schedule or something more often, please send it into Laura and I for the agenda planning committee to make sure everybody's represented.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, adjournment. I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Please stay safe and this meeting is adjourned. May I sign off. Good to see you all.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.